Hello, Anonymous has decided to inform you of what the Church of Scientology calls science. When dealing with Scientology, one must realize that the so-called scientific method employed by Scientology is not the scientific method employed by scientists. One might then ask, what does Scientology consider to be their scientific method? The basic, fundamental principle, subject to modifications upon which we will later elaborate, is that correlation, no matter how attenuated, equals causation. Thus, Scientology dictates that all positive outcomes subsequent to auditing or training are attributed to, and were caused by, that auditing or training. For example, if any time after receiving auditing the preclear finds an open parking spot, his finding an open parking spot was clearly caused by his receipt of auditing. If any time after receiving auditing the preclear gets a part in a movie or TV show, his getting the part was clearly caused by his receipt of auditing. If any time after receiving auditing the preclear wins the lottery, his winning the lottery was clearly caused by his receipt of auditing. Another important principle to Scientology, and consistent with KSW number 1, is that all negative outcomes subsequent to auditing or training are ignored, attributed to the preclear or trainee, or interpreted as being positive. For example, if after receiving auditing the preclear loses his job, this outcome can, should and must be ignored. If after receiving auditing the preclear is unwilling to ignore the fact that he lost his job, this clearly means the preclear was and is a potential trouble source, and OPTS handling is required. If after receiving auditing the preclear loses his job, and is unwilling to ignore this outcome, and is unwilling to accept the fact that he is a potential trouble source, and blames the loss of his job on all of the time he spent in the org, the preclear is an SP. Likewise, if immediately after the preclear becomes a grade 0 release, the preclear's wife divorces the preclear and takes his children away to the opposite coast for the purported reason that the preclear was spending too much time and money on the Church of Scientology, there was clearly no failure in the grade 0 auditing to enable the preclear to communicate freely with anyone, including his wife, on any subject. No, it is clear that the preclear's wife is an evil SP, and that he is better off without her and the children so he can concentrate on going up the bridge to total freedom. The critical thing is to always ruthlessly follow the 10 steps of KSW number 1, and particularly step 3, knowing the technology is correct. There is an irrefutable, irrefutable presumption that the technology is correct. If someone suggests that the technology is not correct, Scientology will investigate not the technology but the person, and find out what the person did wrong. Scientology is not a science. The Church of Scientology claims that Scientologists are not required to accept anything on faith but then requires Scientologists to assume the tech is perfect based on non-causational correlation, completely ignoring the relationships between Scientology and negative outcomes, completely ignoring the fact that parents spend time not with their children but with Scientology, completely ignoring those who are taken off of medication for the purposes of auditing and subsequently die, completely ignoring the danger that results from thinking a physical disease may be cured by words and tin cans. Scientology, in its spread of baseless assumptions and fallacious logic, is damaging to the progression of science and humanity. Knowledge is free. This is Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Know the truth.